It was when the young nation of America found itself in a second war with Britain and the American Navy came of age.
America's legacy as a blue water force for good can be traced to the 6 frigates of the fledgling Navy and the ship drivers who took them into harm's way. But the story of those frigates began years earlier.
Without a decisive naval force, we can do nothing definitive, and with it, everything honorable and glorious.
In the late 1700s, as Europe began to be embroiled in what would become the Napoleonic Wars, more than a dozen American merchant ships had been seized by the Barbary states of the Mediterranean, primarily those of Algiers. Sailors and ship owners were distressed. The ship owners besieged the nation's leaders for some sort of protection. The House of Representatives answered with a resolution claiming that a naval force adequate to the protection of the commerce of the United States against the Algerine corsairs ought to be provided. Congress formed a committee who later recommended that a small squadron should be formed in response. The proposal came to a vote in the House of Representatives on March 10, 1794, and passed with a 50-39 vote. President Washington signed the bill into law on March 27. The nation's War Office was now empowered to purchase or build 6 frigates. These frigates would be designed to carry between 32 and 44 guns, depending on their rating. One of the 39 votes that attempted to block the motion was from a Virginian named James Madison, who would be President of the United States 16 years later during a conflict that would be affected by the very frigates he opposed. The job of acquiring the frigates was now on the shoulders of Secretary of War Henry Knox, a veteran of the American Revolution. Knox would turn to a shipbuilder named Joshua Humphreys, a man who had already started design on a new class of frigate. The new frigates would play a major role in conflicts to come, and demonstrate a strength in designing ships to be as versatile as possible.
The innovative and cost-effective designs of today's Navy can be traced to the work of Joshua Humphreys.
Congress had approved the measure to buy or build 6 frigates, and Secretary of War Henry Knox settled upon a Philadelphia shipbuilder named Joshua Humphreys to design the ships. It was agreed if the need arose. President Washington approved the proposal for ships sent to him by Congress. He was also given a list of names to pick from for the ships. The first 5 frigates were the first 5 options on the list: United States, Constellation, Constitution, Congress, and President. The last was later named Chesapeake. In 1797, the first of the frigates, USS United States, was launched in Philadelphia. She would be followed by the Constellation and the Constitution a few months later.
Ships without leaders are just wooden or steel shells.
Nimitz, Halsey, Spruance, and Burke. These are the names of legendary fighting admirals that resonate with the fleet. But there were men who led our young Navy in the War of 1812 who also forged fighting reputations. Stephen Decatur, who began a prolific career with acts of daring during the conflict with the Barbary corsairs. Isaac Hull, who shattered England's feeling of invulnerability when he led the crew of USS Constitution in the first capture of a British warship in the war. Oliver Hazard Perry, whose flag bore the words of a slain comrade as he engaged a British fleet on Lake Erie, defending the entire Ohio Valley. These men led an officer corps of exceptional warfighters and forged a tradition which has continued for 200 years, based on warfighting excellence and training that began during the War of 1812.
To learn more about the emergence of our Navy during the War of 1812, Watch the Defense Media Activities broadcasts from New Orleans, Baltimore, and Boston on direct-to-sailor television or the Pentagon Channel, April 18th from New Orleans, June 15th from Fort McHenry in Baltimore, and July 4th from USS Kearsarge in Boston. And log on to our 1812 homepage starting April 15th at Navy/1812.